Thank you both so much for joining us in what is a really important topic and conversation for business leaders to get their heads around. I'm wondering if we start with the framing of an established business leader. So they're not a startup, they're not struggling to kind of figure out the commercial aspects. The business is running well, but they are shifting to begin to think differently about what could it look like, to stop thinking about good as something that's external to the business and instead make that shift to say, what are those decisions we have control over? How are we spending money? And think about the good the business itself could do. I'm wondering if you guys could first up just give us a little bit of a pretend we don't know anything. So start from the beginning and maybe even just start with what is modern day slavery and why is it something that business leaders should be thinking about?
Well, we came into this and that was exactly our experience. We had some connections with it. Carolyn had been working with aid and development areas, etc. on that. So we'd had that thing. But when we came to really face it and work through the most important question, which is, what do we do about it? You really got to know what it is. So, and definition's really important because definition creep is such a reality. And so we are very, very careful that we define modern slavery as modern slavery. So easy labour abuse creeps in. So Carolyn, definition that we work on.
So there are, we won't go into all of this, but there are a number of UN protocols and definitions that are now broadly accepted. I use the acronym AMP. Different people use different acronyms, but I can remember that.
It's not the company.
It's not the company. There is A is the action, and the action is about recruitment of people, and then M is the method. The method is through coercion or deception. They are recruited. Now that means they're promised one thing and what they find is something totally different. And then the P is the purpose, and the purpose of this action and the method in which it's done is for the benefit of another person through exploitation. So let me put that into a story, because that's often the way that we hear things better. You know, somebody might be, well, let's put it into the Australian context, but this works as well in the US, UK, EU context. Somebody is living in a Pacific island, and someone says, my uncle can get you a job as a seasonal worker on a farm in Australia. And you'll have good accommodation, you'll have good working hours, you'll get 2 days off a week, and you will get paid this amount.
And you can send money back home, which is the usual one.
To your family. And actually, after you've done this for a little while, we'll get a visa for them to come and join you. And so you say, oh, well, this just sounds like, you know, the solution to my dreams. And so they come, and then they find, yeah, as was the case in a strawberry farm in Tasmania, that there were a 5-bedroom house, no electricity, no sanitation, no running water. The oven didn't work, and there were about 30 plus people living in a 4-bedroom house. They then find that they get that rent deducted from their pay at, you know, $250 a week. They have to pay for the transport from there to the farm. They don't get the amount of money that they've been promised because they're not on a wage. They're being paid piece rate, so they're being paid for the number of strawberries they pick, and that formula is ridiculous. So in other words, they've been recruited. The method is they've been promised something, they've been coerced into it, they've been tricked into it, they've been deceived.
Deception.
And somebody else gets the benefit of this. So that's what slavery looks like. And And just the term that is often used is modern slavery. Modern slavery is an umbrella. It's not a legal term as such, but it's an umbrella that covers things like forced labour, which is what deceptive recruitment, forced labour, bonded labour, where you've had to pay to get the job in the first place. You give me $5,000 and I'll get you a job. And then there's a big debt to pay off associated with that. There's servitude, which is working in slavery-like conditions, child labour, worst forms of child labour, child soldiers, which is another whole spectrum, which we hope businesses that we're talking to today aren't connected with. We doubt it. So it is an umbrella term, and it's used, sorry to do this to your audience, Bessi, but it's used differently in different countries and jurisdictions.
Yeah,
but
of course.
That's a simple explanation.
And in some ways, you mentioned the use of the word modern at the beginning. I think for a lot of business owners, that's actually probably really helpful because it's an aspect where they would probably think, slavery, what are you talking about? Like, is that even an issue today? Why would I even have to think about that as a business leader? So potentially it's just a helpful entry point to start to think about this. If we focus in on the fact that, in my mind, and correct me if you think there's a better way to look at this, but in my mind, there's almost two categories. There can be a business leader who isn't producing a product and so might think this is irrelevant to them because they're like, I don't have a supply chain, I'm not making something. So if we start with that type of business owner who might be running a consulting group or some kind of service business who thinks, well, this isn't relevant, what are the things that actually we may not be aware of that are just part of general procurement or, the products we are buying, even if we're not making a product? How do we make this conversation relevant for that kind of business owner?
Yeah.
So probably to understand that, we need to understand the extent of modern slavery. We're more slaves in the world now than any other point of human history. In fact, we got more slaves today, to 2023, than the whole transatlantic slave trade put together. Just to get perspective, it pervades, and a lot of us come about. And this is particularly in answering that question, Bessi, is that what we're seeing is migrant labour more than any other point of human history. And so it's in things that say a service industry or might be an IT industry. It's coming in the computers that we're using. It's coming in the phones that we are using. It comes in the subletting that we might be having, or, the cleaners, or it could be the transport of getting your packages to you. If you're buying online, it can come in a whole lot of forms in the stationery that we are using. It can be in the areas of the catering, if we are doing that, construction, if we're doing that, or renovations, we are doing that. It comes into this whole lot of areas. We often use an image, and it's you take one look and you go, what is this? And you go, oh, it's a parrot. It's standing on a pole. But it's actually a female painted, and until you actually look and have it pointed out, you can't see it's a person. You just think it's an animal or a parrot. And we use that a lot with slavery because you've got to learn to see it in all those areas. So if you're a small, medium-sized enterprise, an SME, and you think, oh no, it's only the big ones who are doing it. Yes, it is. To the extent Australia is estimated imports every year something like the vicinity of $23 billion worth of goods made by slave labour into Australia. If you're going to look at America, it goes up way higher than that, and Europe and the UK, Asia, etc. It goes up from there. So most of our contact, it is in Australia. Most of our contact is in the goods and services that we are using for our business.